We are on the air everywhere. 1 hour, 45 minutes early this week. This is WeatherBrains episode number 644 for May 21st, 2018. It's the pre-show, a magical time of the program where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say very outrageous things. And it's so early in the evening that we just might be really outrageous. Oh, it looks like Bill's in a urinal somewhere in an airport. Wow.
Wow, the owner of this hotel will appreciate you saying that.
Well, no, it's like it looks like a seedy, shady, dimly lit.
I was trying to provide excellent front lighting at the expense of the back lighting, so I will go and illuminate the remainder of my room for you, Mr. Span.
No, I've always wanted to do the show from a urinal in a airport somewhere. So
well, I could have done that about 12:30 this afternoon, but tonight I'm relegated to a Hampton Inn.
Okay, so Kim, how you feeling tonight?
Doing wonderfully, thank you. How are you guys doing this evening?
Fabulous.
Good.
Brian, what's on your mind?
The SEC baseball tournament.
Oh, who's playing?
Brian is the official meteorologist.
I just care about the weather.
Oh, nice.
Do all 14 teams play in the SEC baseball tournament, or is it like 12?
No. Alabama did not make it. Your team, Bill.
I refuse to acknowledge that.
Well, they've had a horrible season. Horrible. I don't know what happened to them.
Is this the pre-show? Are we being recorded right now?
Yes. Well, I mean, we're on the YouTube. We're live. So
okay. I bet watch what I say.
Don't say anything ugly. No. So Brian is going to provide weather support for the SEC baseball tournament that runs for like how many days, Brian? 6?
Tuesday through Sunday.
Yeah, that's a bunch.
This isn't the first time you've done that, though, is it, Brian?
No, sir. I've been their guy for several years now.
Every day we're going to have these random air mass thunderstorms, which are a nightmare.
And by Sunday, we may have Hurricane Alberto. So,
yeah. But see, this all. By the way, Bill, your mic's kind of hot. If you can back off a little bit there.
Yes, sir.
So, no, Brian, the genesis of your job started, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. Where they kept calling me, and I was trying to play tennis, and I said, let me just come over there. Let me just drive over there and set up shop, and I'll help you. I wound up staying for like 6 hours because there were some active storms and they had lightning delays. And
yes,
said, you guys really, really need a full-time med out here. I mean, this is the Southeastern Conference. This is not. Joe's softball league down here. I mean, this is kind of like a big deal. So but what they had a fireman looking at radar on a laptop. And again,
wow.
The guy was good. He knew a lot about weather, but for a venue like that is very important, thousands and thousands and thousands of people are out there, and you got these campers and RVs. So to their credit, Brian, they kicked it up a notch and brought in you, the legend, the next year. So
not quite, but yes, it really is. It's kind of an awesome responsibility, really, to think about having all those people out there and trying to project where the lightning is going to be and when the storms are going to develop and all that sort of stuff. But we do the best we can.
Let me ask you this. So, for football, that's easy. The officials, if you get lightning within 8 miles, everything stops. In baseball, it's these umpires that run the thing, especially in the major leagues. And they're often really not connected with weather that well. They'll have some guy with an iPad walk over there and talk with them. But who makes the call at that tournament, Brian, when it stops? Well, there you go. I feel better about it.
I do, but it's through the umpires. I mean, we speak with the umpires and explain the situation.
So Brian, if they don't agree with you, do you get to go out there and kick like dirt on their shoes or something?
Hey, they're still the person to make the decision, but
Well, I know, but you can disagree with them like the manager. Can they toss you, Brian? Could you be
I don't know.
tossed out of the Hoover Met?
I have to say that so far, I have yet to encounter an umpire that decided not to take my information. So
what is the rule? Is it 8 miles for the baseball
I
tournament?
use 10.
10. It's
Yes.
8 in football.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So that 10 miles is a pretty conservative, pretty conservative amount. And do you ever feel like with air mass thunderstorms, it's tough to keep that ring?
Yes, the one that develops overhead and produces lightning. I mean, that's the one I fear the most.
Yeah, just nothing ahead of it.
Composite reflectivity.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's why if you look over my shoulder, I'm dancing between the Columbus radar, the Birmingham radar, and the Montgomery radar, because that gives me the two distant radars give me a look a little higher up before something actually does develop overhead.
Well, I thought you meant you were really dancing. That would be worth the price of admission.
No.
Forget the radar. Let's talk about food. What do they have to eat up there for you guys?
Oh, it's great baseball food.
Press box food.
Hot dogs, hamburgers, sandwiches.
Oh, come on. I know they have better food. I've been up there and they've had barbecue and
they have that too.
they've had some good stuff up there. I don't even know if I'm going. I get all their emails. I've got credentials over there, but I never know if I'm going out there until the last minute. So I might run by and see you.
Does your credential say all access? It probably does.
I'm not a big deal like you, Brian.
James just say omni access, which is even one step above.
Yeah, that's probably one step above. Hey, actually, the story 3340 carried this evening, or I saw that we were posting on the web about the SEC's bag policy. It's going to be interesting tomorrow if I have to go out there because I do not have a clear computer bag.
You can go in the press box, though, don't you?
Yeah, I still have to go in the front entrance.
Well, you're a big deal, Brian. They'll let you.
No, I'm not.
You ought to see me at Bryant Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa for the football games. I got the same problem. So I'm bringing in bags of electronic equipment and all this stuff, and they just wave and smile,
They don't do that for me at TSA when I go through with something that looks like a bomb with all these wires and microphones and everything else.
Traveling with me, it's the worst.
Yeah, I caught sight of my bag through the X-ray machine. I'm surprised they didn't just throw me in the prison because I mean it really when you see microphone, laptop, it all really does look ominous. But I guess they have enough experience; they know what they're looking at.
And I was late for my flight today, and I usually never am late, and so they always pick me when I'm late.
Of course.
So I was going through, but they didn't. I was just shocked. I don't know why.
So I need to let the world know that we're on early here, and we're going to join TV in progress. So we'll need to kind of have a logical little break point at 30 after 8 Central. But other than that, I think we're okay. Have you got the guests coming on here, Bill? You got that?
I sent the invite, James, but I haven't. And I just chatted with him about 7 o'clock. So he said he would be ready at 7:30. This could go anywhere tonight, from one of our best shows ever to could just
right
be us
down the
talking amongst
tubes.
Ourselves.
It's had a magnitude 6 earthquake near Guam. That's a big one.
Woo!
Wow.
Tsunami.
Yeah, tsunami threat.
It just happened.
All kind of stuff out on the Ring of Fire out there in the Pacific, isn't it?
And we now have 90L on the board.
Ooh.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Boy, they're moving fast.
Well, they've upped the. They put out a statement like about 30 minutes ago that upped it to 40%, and they gave it a invest number. So there you go. Earthquakes, tsunamis, Albertos. Why do they retire Alberto? I feel like I've been talking about Alberto all my life. I mean,
yeah, we've had a few Albertos.
Yeah.
Wasn't that flood event big enough to retire it? I guess.
Apparently not.
If it happened down here in the deep South, it really don't matter, I guess. All right, I'm not gonna get
controversial statement of the night. I held my tongue on my controversial statement.
I'm not gonna say another word.
Well, hey, the tropical stuff hitting Oklahoma apparently doesn't matter either. I was surprised to see Aaron is still on the list for next year. So that's one that pretty much buried us.
No, Oklahoma doesn't count either. No.
Yeah, we don't count either.
and no matter what the story is, if there's a royal wedding, that's all they do the next day. I mean, it's that happened. I want to say after one of the big might have been our tornado deal in 2011. They had a royal wedding or something a few days later, and they just stopped covering it. We were done.
What was that
Osama
year?
bin Laden too for us,
and they had the shooting. Friday, this horrible shooting in Texas. Stopped covering it. I mean, they're back on it now, but they went all wedding all the time the next day. So, and I'll just. All right, so I'm going to put on the tweeter.
We're here with no reason.
Yeah, we have no guests, no topic, no nothing.
We were just kidding.
If you want to,
I just wanted to see if we could get us all together at 7:30.
Now, didn't Tim send a long email about getting on the show here?
Yeah,
I mean, we did a huge hangout Friday night and tested it all, and so it all worked fine. He's all worried that it won't work, but I think it'll work fine. It's just gonna be us watching over his shoulder while he basically does his show and throwing pot shots at him throughout it. But he should have joined by now, so I'm going to reach out to him by text.
If he didn't join our hangout, he said that we could plug into his YouTube. Was that what he was suggesting?
No, I told him none of that's going to work. I responded to him privately and just said, "Look, if if yours doesn't work, it's just going to be us girls talking to each other."
Cool. Good. Okay.
Man, Bill looks like one of those Halloween characters with the flashlight under his face, that comes up and creeps out.
Lord.
Ooh.
Like the Oracle or something here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. James keeps distracting me. I'm trying to get over here to
see Aubrey. She's on the air everywhere. Aubrey can actually talk. Hey.
Yeah, except my video is glitching.
Yeah.
It is glitching.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a glitch.
It doesn't do this when I thought it was all right. It doesn't do this when I record videos here.
I've never seen you do that on this show before. It's always just been clean as a whistle. It looks great.
Something new.
Hey, look who just joined us.
I may drop out on video then. I don't want that to be distracting. So.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, Tim.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Sound good.
The disembodied voice.
Yes. Yeah. Let me see if I can fix that. Hang on.
Tim has that David Black voice, James.
He's got the big pipes. I feel so inadequate. Try and talk like this. Hello, good evening. He's got the big pipes.
Hope you loaded up your show with lots of tropical information tonight, Tim.
90L is on the board. Woohoo. No, this is like awesome. Starting a little earlier, and again, I think we discussed starting earlier before, and it just didn't work. And Nate sent a note back, wouldn't work for him. Aubrey didn't work for her. We'll probably stay with the time. But for a long time, I would try and go home on Monday night, when we had kids at home. And now that we're kind of empty nesters, I don't go home on Monday nights. I'm here. In fact, I'll usually, Brian, run down to Ragtime down here and have a little dinner. I did not, obviously, tonight since we're starting early.
So we could do the James fan. What did you have for dinner tonight? Like we used to do with JB for lunch.
I am watching Dancing with the Stars, and I can't help but thinking of JB. And it's on our channel now. But this is the finale. But hearing JB rant about those naked ladies on Dancing with the Stars, that was some classic stuff. You know, if we have somebody listening or watching that's got a little time on your hands that wants to be a producer, we'll give you credit, by the way. If you could put together some of the best of J.B. Elliott stories over the years, that would be like awesome.
I've got some pulled out, James. We need to have a JB memory show. That's a good idea.
Some of the best stuff we get from listeners. I mean, we get some funny stuff here.
We need to crowdsource our directory of all of our shows and everything too.
Yeah, and we need to do a better job of getting the old ones. But this one right here is the greatest. JB, did you see this one today? Indian girls plow fields naked in attempt to bring rain.
No.
Now, you've never done this, have you, during a drought?
Yes.
You have plowed fields naked.
16, and I was just so hot.
It was the 1952 heat wave.
I was just so hot. I was just so hot. Just so hot. It was a black field of cotton. So hot.
Wow.
JB is a Bollywood movie star.
Oh, man. I've got some of it. But see, most of this stuff was just listeners submitted. I mean, this is the greatest stuff. And anyway, we'll do that. All right. Let's see here. We got video from Tim now. We see.
I'm here.
Software.
Yeah. I've got my OBS program and Chrome fighting for the webcam there. So I'm only going to be able to bring my picture out like this, I think.
That's fine. Hey, and again, most people listen to this show, although we know a lot watch. About 1 in 4 watch, 3 in 4 listen. So that'll work.
So be very descriptive, Tim.
I'll definitely be doing that.
OBS. You know, I dabble with that once, and I use something called Wirecast now, which is how I do the television stuff in the morning. But anyway, I think we're all good. So we need to start. Go ahead, Tim.
I got one dumb question. We're not on, are we?
Yes, we are. We are on YouTube.
We're doing the show
live
already.
The way it works, whenever we start this pre-show, that's on YouTube. This will not be on the podcast, the audio podcast. Whenever we start, that's when the produced audio podcast begins. So, but you are on the air everywhere on YouTube right now. So,
all right, very good.
Is he on
live? What you say?
BigBrainsMedia.com too, James?
Yes, and actually now, you know, they've got some live chat thing on YouTube. I need to look at that sometime. If you go straight to the show link on YouTube, there's a chat room over there too. We probably have to move everybody over there, but all right. Well, so we start at 7:45 Central, so we need to start now, don't we, Bill?
Sure, we can go.
We're all here.
And Tim starts. Tim starts his show at 8, so we'll just kind of let him roll into his show at 8 o'clock. We can chat right up till then.
Yeah, we'll take that show right down the tubes, which is what we do here. All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is WeatherBrains, the show all about weather. This is episode number 644 for the 21st of May, 2018. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this week, for watching and or listening, or both. Now, it's weird. Some people actually watch the show on Monday nights live, and then they listen later in the week, which is kind of what I do. To me, I enjoy the listening part driving down the road, because often due to work responsibilities, I can't hear all the interview segments. But thank you. And for those that are watching live, we are starting a little early this week, about 45 minutes, which is interesting. I will not have to leave and go do the 10 o'clock news during this show. So that's unless we really go long. But we see Brian Peters, the internationally beloved meteorologist, who will be on scene at the Southeastern Conference baseball tournament this week, providing weather support. Brian, are you excited?
Yep. I am too.
Day, random air mass storms and maybe a hurricane.
Maybe a hurricane, yes. I was talking with the coordinator out there earlier this evening, and I found out that I'm the only person she hopes she doesn't see all week. Because if she sees me, it means that the weather is possibly threatening the tournament. So
So let's say, Brian, you're out there and you get, and you say your ring is 10 miles. For football, Southeastern Conference football is 8 miles. But let's say you get lightning within 9 miles and you got to stop the game, the action down there. Have you got a bat phone to call the umpire? How does that work?
I text the SEC coordinator who's responsible for that call, and then he talks to the umpires. That's the way I understand it goes.
So then you get lightning within 9 miles. You technically don't stop it. You just give the information to the umpire and the Southeastern Conference people, and they decide if they're going to stop it.
Basically,
okay.
But that's the plan. I mean, they have a plan. So my objective and my role is simply to monitor the weather and to, give them a heads up when something might be approaching, and then if it does, then we call it.
Yeah, the Southeastern Conference, they've gone from really worst to first when it comes to severe weather stuff with that SEC basketball debacle.
Yeah.
What was that, 10 years ago when a tornado moved through downtown Atlanta and nobody knew anything in the Georgia Dome about it. Nobody was told anything. They didn't stop anything. I mean, that was just a total debacle. But they have gone really, really doing a good job. And I say really first, I mean, some of the other conferences do a good job, I'm sure. Old Kevin out there in Norman, he's got, what was that, the Big 10, Big 12? I'm not a sports guy. Kim, what do you have out there? Oklahoma's what, Big 12?
We're Big 12, yep.
Yep.
And I would assume you guys take care of business out there for big football games and baseball and all that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially now that Kevin's taken over the weather emergency management for the university. It's excellent. We have information going out to everybody across so many platforms, and he's in touch with all the key decision makers. As I understand it, it hasn't always been that way, but along with everybody else, we've been evolving.
Yeah, Kevin is great. He is the man for that job. So, Kim, what's happening out there? You're still doing the test bed stuff?
So that, fortunately, for my ability to catch up on stuff, wrapped up last week. We did 2 weeks solid of test bed with emergency managers testing our probabilistic hazard information. So that went amazingly well. And I know that there are actually some of the EM participants who are listeners. One who said he listens to our show on 1.5 speed. And so all of our voices are just slightly higher for him. But when he met me in person, he made sure to tell me that my voice when I'm speaking to the crowd in person actually is about the same as when I'm talking to you all, because I slow it down a little for being on the air. But when I'm with them and I'm all excited about the technology, then it gets really fast. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Pretty great. So thanks to all of our participants for being so great. And the folks who are listening tonight who are our participants, thank you for coming out. So yeah, very grateful that part is done. And actually in the next couple of weeks, we're preparing for our broadcaster test bed experiment. And for that, we actually have our own Aubrey, who's going to be one of our participants.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
I am so excited.
You're going to be on the hot seat in the hotbed.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
This non-severe weather market is coming in.
Yes. Yes. Give us all your perspective. It'll be so great.
It'll be really exciting to be a part of that process. So I'm really looking forward to it.
No, we want a full report on this when you get back. We want to know what your report card looks like.
I think my news director wants me to live tweet everything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Do a face bag live when you're out there. I don't think they allow that, though, during the actual event.
Probably not.
No. But Bill, explain this whole show here. We've got a complicated setup here, but you're the man to explain it all.
Well, James, first tonight, our guest weather brain was an Air Force meteorologist in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and he left the Air Force to run his weather consulting programming business, and he's published numerous books on weather forecasting that are just staples if you're studying the field, especially as an amateur meteorologist or a meteorologist in college. And tonight we're going to watch over his shoulder as he broadcasts his nightly meteorology lab program on YouTube. It's sort of like it's sort of like what James and Brian do every morning, except it's 45 minutes long and it's on steroids. So Tim Vasquez, welcome to the show tonight.
Hi, happy to be here.
Well, we've worried about technical glitches and technical difficulties, and like Admiral Farragut said in Mobile Bay, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, Tim. So
absolutely. All right.
So Tim, do you want to chat for a minute? I know you start right at 8:00, so you're probably not very far away, but you've been on the show a couple of times talking about things. But how did your consulting business get started? Talk about the steps that got you to where you are today with your company.
I would say it goes back to before I was in the Air Force. I wrote some weather analysis software for the Commodore 64.
Yes,
that's
my favorite
era
computer
right
of all time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I was crunching these weather maps with, it looked like something out of the National Meteorological Center there. So, and eventually I moved all that to the PC, and then I started doing storm chasing and kind of wrapping everything together, just, kind of a jack of all trades.
So talk about your Air Force career for a minute. You had some special moments during that time, didn't you?
Yeah, right out the gate, my initial assignment was to Kelly Air Force Base down in San Antonio. And then they changed that to California and then Korea. And then they pulled me into an office and said that they had something special to talk about. And there was a chief master sergeant there, and he said, we need somebody for the stealth fighter program, which was still semi-secret at the time. So I ended up going to Nevada, up on the Nellis Range, and working that program for 3 years. And that was very, very memorable.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So the program you got behind you right there right now, that we're going to see that in a minute, probably featured prominently in what you're doing. That's the Digital Atmospheres program, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, in the background of the screen, that's Digital Atmosphere. I use that for my close look at the meso analysis, what's going on at the small scale.
That is really cool. So tonight we're going to ask lots of questions and take lots of pot shots and say things because I think what you're doing in the Meteorology Lab show is really, really great if you're really into weather, because you take a deep dive every night. Do you do that show 7 nights a week, or how many nights a week?
About six nights. Been doing it for about 2 years now.
Well, it is. It's a lot of fun to watch, and it's always fascinating. And Tim, I've turned it on, I don't know, maybe 25 times over the past year and a half or so, and I guarantee I've learned something every time I've watched it.
Awesome. Glad to hear that.
So we're going to take it right down the tubes.
Exactly. And I've got, yeah, so to speak, absolutely.
Now, Tim's got the greatest setup here. I mean, his audio is so stinking good. I mean, we've never had a guest with this quality audio before. This is remarkable. So this is good
I'm glad to hear that. It's partly my viewers. I've got a few in there that like to, send me feedback, and they'll say, this sounded a little bit low. You need to move back a little bit. And I kind of credit their help to some extent.
They just write us and say, you stink, and it was the worst show ever. And I couldn't even listen to it.
Now, see, most of the guests we get on here, they're using like the internal mic on a laptop or, some little headphone thing. But no, this is good stuff. So this is going to be good.
Yeah, all right, very good. Probably have some microphone envy here, James. Any questions about the microphone?
I'm trying to see what he's got. Tim, what is that?
That's a Rode NT1. It's just a USB mic.
USB, yeah, plug the USB.
It's not even an XLR.
Well, I have my XLR right here.
Very good. Looks like a good one there. We're about set here, 8:00, and hopefully I can keep this all coordinated. There's a lot of windows open, so we'll just hope for the best here. So are we ready to go?
You go when you're ready, Captain.
Roll it, man. Right. Everybody.
All ready.
I feel like I need to be quiet, like I'm in a golf course. We're watching the golf tournament about to start, so we're going to be very quiet and do a little.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys through on the audio. So once we get into about 30 seconds to a minute, I think we'll be good. Okay, here we go.
Quiet.
All right, we're starting.
Stand by. This is called dead. This is called dead air in the radio business. So if you're watching our show, don't hang up on us. The best is yet to come. And if you're listening to the podcast version, we're speaking very softly because we have no idea what Tim is doing, but we don't want to take him down in the first 30 seconds of his show. What's his show called, Bill?
Meteorology Lab.
Meteorology Lab. WeatherBrains colliding. A collision course that could be disastrous.
Peanut butter cup of weather.
Yeah, I guess he's on his show and we can't hear him. We'll find out here in a minute.
Yeah, we're probably going out over his airwaves. He got chocolate in my peanut butter.
What?
Hey, good evening. Welcome to Meteorology Lab. We've got kind of a slow spring season, so I'm bringing you some clips from last year. So some very awesome time lapse there. All right, let's head into the charts, and I've got a little bit of a surprise here. Let me get to those maps there, and we've got WeatherBrains connected here, and let me bring them in. And hello.
Hello, Tim.
Surprise!
I think we are connected. The world's collided here.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
So, it's like an old-fashioned barbershop, I guess, here in the window. But
hey,
anyway.
man, that looks kind of psychedelic.
I know it was a joint show is what I put on the title, but that.
Yeah. Hey, man.
All right.
Wow.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and head into the analysis, and usually we start with the surface chart here, and this gives us a look at the weather, and what we have tonight is almost nothing. In fact, the pattern seems to be transitioning. Remember, we had like winter hanging on to like early May, and now it seems like we're in late June. We've got the monsoon kind of kicking up there in New Mexico. We've got a ridge on the plains keeping the storms down. The North Plains is active with marginal severe activity up in this area right there, and that's very typical of early summer. And then out in California, the dry marine layer, high pressure, and again, that's something we see in late June and July there. So not a whole lot going on across the U.S., unfortunately. Let's take a look at the mesoscale. We'll zoom in on that, and we can see this front that has come down from the northern plains, and it's pushed southward, and now it's pretty much stalled out around Dallas. And how do we find these fronts? Well, the primary indicator of these fronts is temperature. You know, you would think maybe pressure troughs or wind direction changes, but we've really got to nail down exactly where that thermal gradient is. Unfortunately, we don't see much of a thermal gradient. It looks like we've kind of wiped out the remnants of that air mass. So we've got what's likely a little convergence line there. Not much of anything, hanging on from about Fort Smith all the way down to Waco. All right, let's head into the chart sequence, and we'll bring that up. And let's see here. Let me get that going. Windows are all out of sequence here. Okay, take a look at the thickness and pressure. There we go. And again, we can see kind of nothing going on. Looks like kind of a very weak front out in Arizona. And we can see a reflection of that in the upper levels right there. You see the thickness coming together, these red lines, and there's like 3 of them right there. That is indicating a thermal gradient in that area. And we always go with a front on the warm side of the gradient like that. So we're looking at somewhere in eastern Arizona. Up to the north, this is where most of our other fronts are. There's our cold front up there from Ontario up to Saskatchewan. And then out in the Pacific, there's a front right off the coast of British Columbia. So along with these fronts, that's where the main polar front jet lies. So that's coming onshore from the Pacific across Nunavut, that northern Arctic territory there, and on into Quebec. Give me 1 second. Little throat spray there. So sometimes
I thought Brian was spraying some deodorant there for a minute. A little right guard.
That's what it was. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at the, let's see, where do we have weather going on? I guess Indiana. We've got a little bit of activity up there. I think we had an enhanced severe risk from SPC for that region. So let me find the Midwest chart. There we go. And this is from the College of DuPage. It's one of a number of great sites to get model data. So we'll start out. You can see a cold air mass up there in Wisconsin, Michigan. Temperatures only in the 50s this afternoon. And you contrast that with the 70s and 80s down in the Ohio Valley. So it appears that, yes, we do have a front in the Midwest region. Looking at somewhere between around the Quad Cities to Cleveland, and then down in Indiana and Illinois, looks like we have an outflow boundary in that region, and possibly another outflow boundary in this region here in Minnesota. So these are details that we look at on the charts, and the models are very good for giving you these fields and helping you pick out these boundaries. So when you're not finding it on the mesoanalysis, the plots, digital atmosphere, or wherever, you can go to the model data and kind of compare and contrast what you're seeing. All right, time to go to the satellite. Let's check that out. I don't know if y'all can hear it. I've got some people next door taking down a tree with a chainsaw. So,
I thought that was Brian shaving. Is that Brian?
Yeah.
He's spraying Right Guard
Wow.
deodorant, and he's shaving with a chainsaw, trying to get
He's
that beard
getting
off.
ready for the SEC baseball tournament.
Yeah. This is great.
I'm in Texas here, and I can assure you there's nothing criminal going on out there. All right, let's see here. A little storm system out in the Four Corners area. There it is right there. Looks like a little upper level energy spinning around out there. So we're going to look for that on the upper air chart here. Looks kind of tropical out in Florida, the southeast U.S. right there, and nothing going on in the plains. It's very shut down. In fact, let me show you a very interesting graphic. This is a look at tornadoes in May. We're going to start out with 2000 here. So 2000, this is the tornado distribution. Looks like maybe about 100 to 150 tornadoes. Let's go to May 2001. Okay, so they're kind of scattered around Midwest down in the Red River. Then we get clustering on the Great Plains in 2002. Now we get a lot of them in 2003. In fact, you can kind of see a few corridor outbreaks out over the mid-Mississippi River region. 2004, it kind of slows down. Same thing, 2005, scatters out. And then we just kind of go forward, see the ebb and flow of tornado distribution. And then 2011, some corridor outbreaks there. 2012, kind of a down year. And then there's 2013, lots of tornadoes there in Oklahoma for sure. 2014, it kind of lets down. 2015, kind of picks up. 2016, it goes down. 2017, now look at 2018. This is where we're at 20 days in. So we are definitely below normal. And I think if I was still chasing, I'd probably be throwing my camera through the window.
They're all waiting until I get there in June, I bet.
Yeah.
But Rick Smith would fuss at us for jinxing him for having a good tornado season.
Yeah. But we're about halfway in, and we still got until early June for things to pick up, and don't quite write things off to around the 15th. All right, let's see, what do we got here? Oh, yeah, the Intertropical Convergence Zone. If you look on the down south, that's pretty far north. This is kind of like where we usually see it in July. We see it running from about French Guiana through Venezuela, across Panama right there, and then out in the Pacific. And you can see it's getting a little bit stormy there in the Caribbean. And typically, this is where we see the Intertropical Convergence Zone. In January, it's pretty far south in South America, but in July, you can see it stretches across Venezuela and Panama. So I would say even probably a little bit further north than usual there. Okay. And then just a quick look at sea surface temperature anomalies. The Caribbean not looking particularly warm, but we are pretty active out there. And we've got some sort of tropical disturbance out there that we're going to be looking at over the next couple days, or forming out there in the next couple days. Okay.
Invest
Let's see.
90L.
90L. Very good. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at a bit of SCUT analysis. This is something that we do. We've got a lot of people that like to chase or follow severe weather. So this kind of brushes you up on some of the key techniques that you need to know there. One moment here.
More right guard for Brian.
He's hoping it lasts for the entire SEC baseball tournament. One application tonight.
Yeah, I have to take my 1 May shower tomorrow.
Great. And let us know how that chainsaw goes ripping that beard off, too. I'd love we need some before and after pictures.
I got to get my black socks and Bermuda shorts ready, too.
Exactly. And after the tournament, Brian will be out there with his metal detector, combing the field, looking for tokens. Tim will never invite us back on his show.
Never.
No. I could think he hung up on us.
Maybe the tree fell on something and
there you
broke
go.
his audio.
Hey, guys. Sorry about
There
that.
you
I
go.
tried to take you guys off mute, and it didn't take it there. But you guys held down the fort pretty good. All right, upper level pattern.
So mute.
We can do that very well, Tim.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. We've got a lot of viewers that are interested in the upper level charts, and we go over some of that. And I've just outlined this trough we have there in California, and you can see the upper level low looks like it's over the San Joaquin Valley. This is the 500 millibar chart that's going to be roughly up at about 18 to 19,000 feet. And we use that to kind of get just a general idea. It's kind of a general, sort of like a cross section in the middle of the troposphere. And we get an idea where all the different systems are and so on. And we see not only the upper level low, we see also a trough kind of outlining around the upper level low, and also a jet stream. And why do I plot a jet there? Well, you can see the height contours, which is analogous to pressure. They're kind of packed very close together there in Southern California. So that right there, there's going to be some very strong winds in there. That's exactly like a pressure gradient, except it's aloft there. And also the vorticity contour. Here we have strong cyclonic vorticity, and here we've got very low vorticity. So in between those regions, that's where we have very strong flow. It's the shear of that strong flow of air that produces the cyclonic and anticyclonic pair there. So based on all of that, I can bring polar front jet around from off the coast of California into Arizona and the Four Corners area. And you can also see a ridge over the plains, and that's the bane of storm chasers, extending from Amarillo all the way up to Wyoming, Montana, little transitory upper level low going through the Dakotas, and then you can see another ridge downstream across the Great Lakes. And generally, underneath these ridges, we see fair weather, warm conditions, and kind of a drying trend to the atmosphere there. So what we're going to do with the SCUTs, we're going to take a couple of whacks inside the ridge and inside the upper level low and look at the air masses in them. And maybe we'll find one in between. Go to Arizona and look underneath that jet stream. And then we'll try going maybe deep into the ridge, down to the south, and maybe up north. So let's do that. All right, SCUTs. Let me switch over to that. Got varying windows up at the top. And here we go. This is from University of Wyoming. It's a great place to get SCUTs. And they've got them not only around the world, but they've got all this historical data. So you can go back and look at any situation that piques your interest there. All right, we're going to take a look underneath that ridge around Fort Worth. So here we go. And there's the SCUT at Fort Worth. Let me get that centered. And we see very warm conditions aloft, up above 800, 700 millibars, which is about 10,000 feet and up. This is a SCUT chart, and it shows us a diagram of temperature on that axis right there versus height. So basically, the top of the chart is up at around 50,000 feet. The bottom is pretty close to the surface. So this is showing us a plot of temperature on the right and then a moisture line over on the left there. So what we're seeing here, since this part of the line is kind of far to the right of the chart, this indicates a warm layer. And when we lift a parcel that's saturated, such as a thunderstorm updraft, it's going to follow these moist adiabatic contours like that. So the one I would select in this situation, I would do my basic pull lift, and we talk about this on the show quite often. We lift that, and it's going to go up something like that, and we can see that it hits this area of warm air up at about 8,000 feet. The atmosphere cools down relative to the parcel, but then the atmosphere gets warmer than that parcel once again. So this is very non-conducive to vertical motion. And another problem that we have going on is the poor wind flow. You can see the plots over on the right, wind flow of 5 to 10 knots. And aloft, we do have a little bit of help, some 65 knot winds being reported there, but that's only kind of iffy right there. It would help organize the storms a bit, but not much in the way of rotating storms. Okay, we'll take a look at opposites. We'll go into California and look at Oakland. So here's the SQT for Oakland, showing some warm air aloft. It's not particularly cold there, but the troposphere is very low. And that's that kink there, that temperature line up at about 30,000 feet, showing the stratosphere very low down, just 5-6 miles off the ground. And then we also have this frontal inversion right there. Looks like maybe that tops out at about 800 millibars. That's going to be about 6,000 feet. And we've got some moisture there that's probably come from the Pacific. Looks like about 5,000 feet deep there. All right, and also you can see the winds, they're northwest. So we've probably clipped the back of that trough there. We'll go in between and look at Tucson. And here you can see the upper level winds are a lot stronger. That would be great to have if we had a little bit of moisture. Bring that wind profile onto the plains, and we would get rotating storms almost certainly going somewhere. And then let's see, we're going to take one more, maybe go down south to Corpus Christi. So that's going to bring us further south into the ridge. And here it looks like we pick up some tropical moisture. The moisture curve here showing, come on, moisture curve. Come on, tool. All right, sometimes my tool goes out, so let me just restart that.
That's a show title right there, by the way.
That was it.
Sometimes my tool goes out. That's got to be the show title.
Write that one down, Brian.
Yep.
See, Tim doesn't do show titles. We do show titles.
Excellent. All right, there's our tropical moisture right there. So extending all the way up to the tropopause up at the top, and you can see how much higher it is. It's up there at about 160 millibars. That's going to be up at about 40. That's going to be about 42, 43,000 feet. All right, let's head into the forecast, and I've got my handy dandy title here. And before I get too far into that, I'm going to take a look at chat and see how my viewers on YouTube are doing. So let me bring that up. And
they're saying, who are these losers that you hooked up with here? I mean, where'd you pick these guys up from?
Yeah,
It's in the hate mail too.
Yeah. Send it to Brian at brianpeters.com. That'd be a good one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm taking a look at my chat here. And for those of you who want to know how to get here, we're at youtube.com/Tim WXX. Tim WXX. I don't think I have a title card for that, but you can also just search for me under Tim Vasquez and Meteorology Lab. And it's also on my weathergraphics.com website. Let me just put that up real quick. And while I do that, I'll freshen up my throat here. Sorry.
Brian, spray that right guard, buddy.
Amen.
He's on it. All right. Back to our charts here. And I'm going to check on my chat here. Let me do that. And we've got Michelle Curlin here reminiscing about 250-mile wide tornado on an old chart. It's kind of Also, Erica Baker, Coffeyville, Kansas, 79 degrees there. Sue M. Also joining us there, David Lumbert, 82 degrees in Arkansas. We've got Willie Greenway out there in Georgia, Ron Chalfon in California, Fun with Tech, and Burl H., Clyde Hoadley, Ryan Toomey's down there in Florida watching our tropical area. Rain impacting South Florida. Chris Jackson, welcome to the program. Christian Flock and Shirley Keast, 75 in Michigan. Carl Burkhoff, I think I might have mentioned you. Electric Dog says, hello, weather brainiacs.
Yeah, some of our creatures will come over there, and you'll be sorry you invited them in, probably. Yeah.
But we comment about the mosquitoes, chainsaw or Texas mosquitoes.
Yeah,
another vote for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And scrolling down, Ryan Toomey's tropical system still plotting on the GFS and Euro as a weaker system, and we do cover the Euro model from time to time, so that's usually on our webcast there. And let's see, hit the like button. Appreciate that, Electric Dog. And Investigate Facts, welcome back. MS, hello. And David Holcomb made it into the program. So got quite a crowd here.
I feel bad. We never give a shout out to the people in our chat room. I'm feeling guilty all of a sudden.
Yeah, we got to do a better job of that, James.
Yeah, I feel bad. I mean, I'm really feeling bad now.
Well, we got 32 here, and I think you guys have got, what, 32,000? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
A couple of orders of magnitude higher there. We're still starting out kind of small here. But anyway, let's go into the forecast and start pulling that together. And there we go, to the maps. Now, this is something different. I try to work in different charts. I stick to kind of a core sequence with different products on different university sites and so on. But I try to throw some random stuff in because, you know, we get weird and unusual situations, and sometimes it's good to be able to, you know, refer back to all the tools you have available. This is the temperature anomaly, and it's not only surface temperature anomaly, it's 850 temperature anomaly. This is up at about 5,000 feet MSL. So yeah, that's going to impact the mountains a little bit and the Rockies there. But overall, this is good for kind of minimizing some of the diurnal effects and kind of letting us really see where the air masses are. And that's a big thing that we do in forecasting, is trying to locate the air masses and kind of anticipate what kind of changes we're going to see as they move around and evolve. And you can see there's a very warm air mass in the Canadian prairies, and it looks like a little bit of cool air in Arizona. So Phoenix, instead of 150, they're probably 130 down there, something like that. So let's check out the trend. You can see the specific system. In fact, you can use that gradient there to plot the front. So that's what I'm doing here. That shows where the cold front is, and there's probably a warm front in here somewhere. But anyway, you can see that system there kind of spinning around as we move it forward. One little slug of cold air goes down between California and Hawaii there. Very strong warm up, and man, look at that warm weather there on the coast of Hudson Bay. So it looks like they're getting some payback for all that cold air they sent southward. So let's see just how warm, and I've got a couple charts up. This is the temperature anomaly at the surface, and you can see the very strong warm up they have up there near Churchill. That's the big polar bear sanctuary up there in that region. And temperatures. Oh yeah, this is temperatures, and they're showing this is about like close to 90 degrees up there. And it'd be something to be standing on this side of Hudson Bay where it's 20 and thinking that on the other side of the bay it's like almost 90. You know, I can't imagine the thought of that right there. So hang on a second. Okay. Going on to the next chart. In fact, let's just roll this forward. Let's get a look at the long term. People are kind of concerned when we're going to have our next chase action. So that temperature anomaly. Okay, we'll roll that forward. Lots of warm air up in Canada. Usually that's kind of a bad thing because that kind of ties up the weather and gets us stuck with ridging in that region. That's kind of hard to dislodge this time of year. And you can see the warm temperatures there in the Dakotas. That's indicative of some strong westerly flow there. So it's like the cyclone there in the Colorado region probably shut down for a little bit. And then we see this tropical system making its way onshore. The models have been kind of wavering back and forth. This is the Canadian model right here, and you can see it's bringing it up into New Orleans, but I've seen the GFS trying to bring that into Florida. And the timing does look to be consistent between the Canadian and U.S. model to be sometime this weekend. So you can see this is Saturday. You've got it lurking right off the coast there of New Orleans. So it looks like somewhat of a cone maybe in here as far as movement. And let's take a quick look at the NHC chart, what they're going for. And there it is. They're tracking that, and they're kind of expecting that to go into the central Gulf there. They've got a 40% chance of cyclone formation in the next 5 days, and there's a little bulletin right there. They're looking for mostly rainfall to be the main threat. Typically, we don't see storms this time of year go up much above Cat 1, so that would be probably the upper end of any potential this time of year. And most likely this is going to be probably a tropical depression or maybe a weak tropical storm there. Okay, back to the model charts. Let's start with the short range. This is what we do here. Start out with the high resolution rapid refresh there. And you can see the orographically produced storms there in New Mexico. That's a bit of a monsoon type pattern. We've got all that Gulf moisture. Instead of coming up to the plains, it's coming up into New Mexico, kind of feeding that area up there. And you can see a little bit of upper air support in that region, kind of forms into an MCS and moves out onto the panhandle around midnight. And that starts shutting down. And that's pretty much because we lose the heating. It becomes kind of warm as the elevated mixed layer moves up off the plateau region. And we can take a look at that. Pivotalweather.com, they've got a neat little Scooty graphic. You can click on that, and it brings up this Sharpie diagram. And we can see the lapse rates are not that impressive. The red line that I've got here matches the parcel line in white there. So that's showing pretty neutral buoyancy there. And the upper level winds are a bit on the weak side, only about 20 to 30 knots aloft there. And the hodograph, we go over hodographs a lot on this program, so it's another reason to join in. Hodograph, we kind of call that a dead snake hodograph, dead snake on the road. And it's kind of all flopped around itself, and that's indicating that we've got kind of a very weak shear profile there. So that MCS just kind of dies out, and not much of it left by dawn. To get that going past dawn, we'd have to have really good upper level support there. Probably the same situation in the Central Plains tonight. We roll that out, and a little bit of elevated activity there in eastern Nebraska around dawn, but other than that, not a whole lot going on. And the prevailing flow is going to be just southerly, just typically like what we see in late June and July. And then a quick look out in the Midwest where we have some storm action going on. About right now, it's looking like this area of storms moving into Ohio, approaching Cincinnati, Dayton, and Louisville there. That's got a little bit of upper support, so it's just going to move overnight into Pennsylvania, and the rest of the activity just kind of dies off. So that brings us to the, I guess, the medium term, next 1 to 2 weeks, I guess, at least. Check out the GFS here, and what we look at is the prevailing pattern. I don't start out looking at these little lows and highs and that kind of thing. What I'm looking at is the general air mass arrangement, and I can see that by looking at the high pressure off Florida right here in the corner. I can see a big oceanic high out off the California coast. That's a very summer-like pattern there. So those are the two big air masses dominating the region, and that's very, very summer-like. And then up to the north, we've got a little bit of polar action, high pressure up in that region. And in between, we've got this little area of lee side troughing there in Colorado, and that's associated with that jet stream coming out of the Four Corners area. If we lose that jet stream, that little low would probably go away there. So that's pretty much what's influencing the weather, and it's not really a whole lot going on at this time. Okay, so rolling forward, auto caps fell on the floor. All right, so looks like that little low pressure system there in Colorado. That's the lee side low, little baroclinicity in that. What we mean is temperature contrasts in that low. It looks like it develops a little bit right there. Anytime we get that kind of cyclogenesis going, there's always potential for upslope flow on the north and northeast side of those lows there. So probably an elevated chance of storms there in western South Dakota, eastern Wyoming, and southeast Montana. And that's a great place to avoid the crowds. You pretty much be out there by yourself. So we get storms going up for Tuesday. Let's see, that comes out right there. And then along the dry line is pushed way back to the west there. And again, that's a June-like pattern. And the pattern will be kind of stagnant as long as nothing departs eastward. So it looks like a little wave moves up into the Dakotas, and we keep that little lee side trough and dry line out in Colorado and New Mexico. Next big change comes in from the Pacific. Looks like a cold air mass moving onshore there around Friday, and also it appears this high pressure up in the Hudson Bay region builds in. It's not going to make as much progress this time around, probably roll into the Great Lakes and the Midwest. And then on the plains, we've got that Colorado low continuing to sit there and bring that moisture northward. Not a whole lot of boundaries and help weather-wise to get any of these convective storms going. Looks like most of that's going to be focused up in the northern plains. Here's that tropical system coming on shore in Florida on Sunday. And this model does kind of waver back and forth there. And you can see the remnants heading up into Georgia there. But remember, HC has got that kind of in the central Gulf for now, and that's kind of what the Canadian model is doing at this time. Looks like a little backdoor front there in the northeast U.S. Look at that pressure gradient right there in Virginia into North Carolina. So that's a good boundary right there. Maybe some good storms developing in Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee there early next week. This is about a week from now. And yeah, it looks like that high pressure just builds right in. It's got some muscle behind it, and that makes it all the way down to Texas there. So that'll probably dry us out a little bit there. Also, a little bit of cold air coming onshore in California, but it looks like it's kind of stalling out there in the southwestern U.S. And let's see, that's probably about it. Oh, yeah. Looks like that boundary finally makes it down. A little reinforcing shot maybe towards the third and fourth. That'll be good for convective development. So I wouldn't totally write off this spring. I think we just have to get past this ridging pattern and let that high up there do its magic. And we really didn't like seeing that high pressure up there, that Hudson Bay vortex a month ago. But right now, it's actually a little bit helpful for getting a little activity in this region. So you can see how things get kind of busy out there towards the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and the model has been kind of consistent with that pattern. Okay, so I think that's about it here. Let me take one last look at chat.
This is going to be the longest weather roundup we've ever done here.
I was going to say, that's one thing we won't have to do tonight, James.
No. You've been listening to the 1-hour version of the weather roundup, ladies and gentlemen. That is the most complete weather briefing you will ever get on this show. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's see. Going through the last of my chat here. A little discussion there about sea surface temperatures in there. Bobby Conway talking about a convective wave there in the Caribbean.
Yeah, those sea surface temperatures in the northern Gulf looked awfully warm, though, Tim.
The Gulf there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got that sea surface temperature chart. Let me see if I can bring that up there.
Yeah, they looked awfully warm over the northern Gulf.
Yeah, definitely right up in that area. The air mass, or I'm sorry, the sea surface temperature, let me back that up. The sea is a little bit shallow in that region, so that may be part of the region, the reason there. This is all deeper waters out to the south, so could be something to do with that. All right, let's see. That's probably it for chat, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up. And remember, if you want to see this chat, it's at weathergraphics.com. There should be a link there, or you can just go to the Meteorology Lab channel there on YouTube. So thank you for watching, and we will roll the closing music, and we will see you tomorrow. So take care.
This closing music's better than ours, James. Just kidding.
I think Tim's playing that live. Is that a ukulele he's playing in there?
Yeah, there you go.
So, Tim, are you clear now?
Hang on a second.
All of you tripping out on WeatherBrains, stay tuned.
Okay, I think I should be going to WeatherBrains and not my channel, so that's kind of what I'm shooting for. Let me go ahead and lower this level, and we'll be clear.
Hey, Tim, you want to hear our rollout song? This is the one we use.
Let's get social.
There you go.
Social media.
Okay.
That or have you tried turning it off and on again song?
Oh, yeah.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Off and on again. Off and on again.
Sorry.
Well, I'm impressed. I was able to stream all this stuff and talk to you guys at the same time. That's excellent.
It's pretty amazing, Tim. So, when we planned this show, Tim, we thought May 21st would be an extremely busy day on the plains, and that just didn't happen.
Nothing happening. Tim, we have one of our chat room guys wanted to ask you about this. All right, I'm done, Bill. I'm sorry. I'm going to ban myself from the soundboard for the rest of the show.
Yeah, that's so. Did you see the blog by Dr. Cliff Mass? Tim, did you have any comments on his thoughts on the future of the Weather Service and that process?
No, I actually haven't seen that. What were they talking about?
He basically said that, with the national blend of models now, that the model is actually slightly better than the forecasters. And so the Weather Service needs to basically stop, being in the business of, building the grids and let the models do it in the short run and go to other processes to use their time well. So I think that's probably going to be a really controversial discussion, even though that's probably in some ways in line with what Dr. Usolini and the official administration, maybe is, leaning toward in the long run, probably. So I don't know if you had any comments or if any of the other panelists had any thoughts about that interesting and provocative article from Dr. Cliff Mass.
Yeah, I know that's kind of an age-old question, and there's been papers about that published all the way back to the late 70s about the meteorological cancer and whether models are going to be better than human forecasters. And there actually still is most definitely a role for human forecasters. The models are best for just, kind of the grinding work and laying down kind of like roughly where all the boundaries are going to be. But I still find there's a surprising amount that I have to fill in to be able to make an accurate forecast.
James, what were your thoughts on that article?
I need to read it. Cliff is great. I think that humans are very important. And understand, we are now at a point in this country where most people are getting weather off crap apps. I mean, let's admit it. They're getting weather off the stock app on their phone, which is totally automated, robot weather. And to me, it's not working.
Hey everyone, this is Chief Meteorologist Aubrey Urbanowitz. We still have our flood warnings for Petersburg and Northwest Rockingham County.
Wow.
Live update. WHSB.
I'm about to say we have...
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
So when this thing goes off the rails, it goes off the rails. I mean, we're doing this a different time. I've never had Aubrey do that before. I wonder if she's on the radio or what. That's interesting. Wow.
She has flooding going on around her area up there.
But no, but back what I was saying, and again, I need to read Cliff's post before I even make a comment, intelligent comment about it. But I think there's a screaming need for humans. And this week is a great example down here where we are. We have graduations. We have the SEC baseball tournament. We have Memorial Day on the Gulf Coast. And if you look at your crap app, it's just got a picture of rain every day. And a number, high, low, and maybe a chance of rain. What does that tell anybody? It doesn't tell them anything. It doesn't tell them forecast confidence. It doesn't tell them timing. It doesn't tell them if there's a significant risk of flooding or severe weather, tropical, nothing. But that's all people see. And I don't know if we are able to push them to any of our products and services, but I do know there are many people that will seek them out. Maybe not everybody, but accordingly, I think there's a great need for people and automation. I understand you have to automate it if you're going to do a national forecast thing like that, but no, people don't need to go away.
Yeah, Kim, any thoughts on that?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think James, you actually hit on a couple of the things that Cliff touches on in his essay, and one of the things that he was talking about was that there's now going to be a need for translators as we provide more sophisticated forecast information, especially probabilistic information, where you can start to do things like quantify the confidence of your forecast and try to offer an array of different kinds of futures. So, yeah, no, you're right on. I think it was a set of really good comments that are going to be very controversial, and it's always worth noting Cliff Mass, his voice really carries. As much as you talked about us having our pretty big audience earlier, he has at least 100,000 people who read his blog on a regular basis, including members of Congress. So always good to keep abreast of what he's saying, and we'll just know that those are going to be powerful statements that resonate.
Brian, anything to add to that?
No, it's kind of interesting that the forecast accuracy he posts in there between all the different forecasting groups, if you will, is it's still relatively close. I mean, it's kind of interesting that the percentages, you know, there's not a wide spread. It's fairly narrow spread.
Well, I thought your show tonight was really interesting and fascinating for us to watch over your shoulder as you did it, Tim. One thing I was going to ask you about was with the EML and the dry line. What causes it to ebb and flow back and forth across the region there like it does?
The dry line moves back and forth due to a combination of strong mixing with heating during the day. You'll have the sun just basically beating down on that hot terrain there, for example, like on the Cap Rock there. And you get thermals going up, and it's very heated, and that mixes out the moisture into the free atmosphere there. And that causes the dry line to gradually mix eastward. And then it rolls back towards the west overnight due to the pressure gradient, bringing it northward and just building that back into the higher terrain.
Yeah, that's an amazing feature. Just it's like watching water slosh back and forth in a bathtub.
Exactly.
Every day.
Yeah, and out in Bangladesh, where they have a big tornado problem, same as in Oklahoma, they've got a dry line there. It's commonly in India, out in the east part, and then it rolls into Bangladesh during the afternoon. So maybe some chase potential there in the years ahead.
Now, Tim, you mentioned bottle caps. You mean the old candy that we all ate when we were in the sixth grade in the 70s?
Yes, I had a pack of that here. I think it's the Willy Wonka brand, and it fell off the desk.
So James, what was your favorite bottle cap? What's your favorite flavor of bottle cap?
From my childhood?
Yeah, you remember that?
The bottle caps, you know, where you pop the thing off those bottles.
No,
and
it was a candy. It was a candy.
No.
Had a root beer and a cola, and I don't.
So all you country club guys had those stuff. I didn't. No, I'm from Butler County.
Yeah, that came from the corner cupboard store right down the street. That was my source for that. So James, tonight when the TV turned on at 8:30 and they saw Tim, do you think they all said, hey, who is this guy? Let's keep him on. Let's get rid of those bozos that are usually on here Monday night at 8:30.
Yeah, no, and I apologize. I was going to try for people watching on television. I was going to do my best to, come in and say we're doing an early show, but I didn't want to interrupt him. So if you're watching on television, we started early tonight. you got the greatest weather briefing of all time. So we'll leave it at that. So Tim, I got to ask you a question, man. You're a forecasting genius. What in the world do we do about air mass thunderstorms down here? So it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and somebody says, I have a high school graduation at 7 o'clock at point A. I need to know, will it rain? Will we ever come to a point where we can give an answer to that question? In the summer, air mass storms in the summer down here.
If we can get the Weather Service to increase the density of observing sites, that would be a big help. But the big problem we have right now is with radiosonde data. We're still looking at about 150, 200 miles between radiosonde stations, and that's many thousands of cubic kilometers of the atmosphere that are unsampled. So, I mean, I'm continuously amazed the models actually work the way they do. The analysis algorithms they use are very sophisticated, and they have mathematician, meteorologists there at Washington, D.C., and that's all they do is they work with just one little niche of developing these analysis programs, and they are really fantastic.
Yeah, they're good, but they're not good with random air mass convection. I mean, you know, the HER, the 3 kilometer NAM, whatever. And the problem, people. Go ahead,
I will tell you that yeah, you're pretty much. You might as well get a Ouija board if you want to know what's going to happen later in the afternoon. But when you start getting within maybe about 2 or 3 hours, you can look at boundaries. That's where you need, you know, a human forecaster looking at things. The models, even the high resolution rapid refresh, cannot pick up on those fine boundaries right there. So that the human forecaster within about 2 or 3 hours can forecast that graduation thunderstorm.
Yeah, but again, they want to know at 7 o'clock in the morning so they can make plans to move it indoors or whatever. And again, and people, what they do, they get these phone apps, and I guess it's raw model output from one of these high resolution, you know, convection allowing models. And it's just wrong as could be. You know, it'll put that, you know, they move the little sliders 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, and they see these nice radar echoes, and it's got nothing to do with the truth. I mean, like you say, you'd have better luck, you know, playing pickup sticks with your backside than this thing being right. So, you know, I don't think it's going to happen in my generation. And you're right. We obviously need better, you know, continuous upper air monitoring and, you know, a denser network at the surface. But at some point they'll get it. But I don't think it's sure going to happen on the next 2 generations. So. That's our biggest struggle down here, air mass storms.
I can't help, James, but wonder what those crap apps did today when we're watching these showers, and they were showers, there were no thunderstorms in them, moving to the northwest out of southeast Alabama, and then about maximum heating between about 4 and 5 o'clock, they started to decrease.
Fizzled. They fizzled right at the time you think they'd be blowing up.
It's like, you know, who's going to forecast that they're going to fizzle at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? I mean,
but like Tim says, what you do, you get you do this hand drawn thing and look for small scale boundaries.
Yes,
small scale boundaries, and
I agree.
You will never get that from your automated weather app,
right,
or from a model typically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things we do on our on Meteorology Lab. If we have an active weather day, maybe a moderate risk, we will do that hand analysis, put the camera over the chart, and we'll be breaking out the crowns and stuff. So that's instrumental for finding boundaries for sure.
Do you still do hand-drawn analysis, Tim? Do you still get out the old colored pencils?
Yes, I've got stacks of hand analyses and thousands. It's a lot of practice, but it really keeps you aware of what's happening on a severe weather day, and nothing replaces that.
That's a great segue to your WeatherWise feature that you do every month, Tim. That's
yes.
Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I write for WeatherWise magazine. I have a column in there that I've done since about 2001, and also I write for IFR magazine, and of course I've got my forecasting books right here. So those are at weathergraphics.com. And that's going to be that site right there. And you can pick up one of those. And Weather Analysis and Forecasting Handbook is a good one to start with. So that's my big plug there.
And so, Tim, you're big into air traffic control, you know, and flying and things like that. Talk about the limitations that ATC has with weather, because I listen sometimes to, you know, towers across the country, and I'm, you know, rather surprised at, you know, what little information they have at their fingertips. Is that really real, or is that just is that the truth?
It's improving quite a bit. They've got the new TDWR radar system, and that gives them really what they need. The problem is that that's only in like major airport areas. But they do rely on NexRad, and that was one system that was developed to kind of solve that problem, because there was only like a liaison weather service officer that worked there until like the 80s or 90s. And since then, they've really improved the coordination.
And I was listening to, I think, I want to say it was Chicago the other day when they were active. Oh, maybe it was Baltimore Sunday morning when there were active thunderstorms to the west. And they were constantly asking the planes coming in what they were, measuring on their, I guess they identified a couple of planes that had, equipment that could measure the actual wind speed outside, and they were getting that information from them. So, what happens when we start getting a lot more information from planes into the system here soon?
Well, that's one thing that they've been doing, especially ever since that Delta crash in New Orleans in '82. They found that these pilot reports around the airports were really crucial for filling in the data, because even the TDWR is kind of limited what it can fill in as far as these outflow boundaries and microbursts around the airports. As far as the other thing that you said, the increase in weather data, I don't know if they have the ability to really, do much with that. They probably got, weather service people coordinating and passing on what they need to know, but I don't know if that really addresses your question there, but.
Well, we need to go around the table here and see what everybody's thoughts are on this tropical system. You touched on it in a very wide, fan right there.
Yeah, we were seeing that as like almost a Cat 4 storm about a week ago. The model was going crazy with that, and bringing a major hurricane up to Florida. And I was telling people, that's the model gets really flaky that far out. And eventually,
wait a minute, I saw that on Facebook. You mean it's not true? It was on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, Facebook. That's a great information source.
Yeah, there you go. So James, what's your gut telling you on this one?
Well, I was waiting let's let Tim go first. He's our guest. I mean, Tim, you drew a big old V on your maps there. What central pressure, and where does it go in, or does it go in, or does it happen at all?
What's that? High pressure?
No, 90L, 90L, baby, 90L.
Oh, which way does it go? It's probably just going to keep cruising to the northwest, coming to the Central Gulf, maybe make landfall on Louisiana or Biloxi, somewhere in there.
That's right.
Yeah, the
European has it today, right?
Yeah, your European brought it up in there, and it has had a pretty good track record. The GFS. The GFS brings it up toward Tampa and then up into Georgia, then hooks it back to the left into Alabama. I don't, I've been doing this a long time. Typically, these late May, early June systems, they're like a depression, just a big old bunch of rain. So I'm not so sure it's that important where it goes in. But I will say the lowest pressure is coming right up Mobile Bay.
Fine into the canal.
As a depression. They might give it a name, but it'll be like a depression, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, so sounds like a good call to me there. But, this far out, you really can't tell. There's a lot of drift, and there's a lot of small-scale features in the Gulf. We don't know how the system is going to interact until it really gets in there. So I think anything beyond 5 to 7 days is really just kind of a wag.
So Tim, what are your thoughts on the return of El Nino later this year, and what impact that might have on the hurricane season?
Well, that I'm not really too sure about. I'll say definitely climatology is kind of its own field, and I kind of dabble more in the operational day-to-day forecasting. That's a very specialized area, and as I get into some of the journals on that, my head just kind of explodes from it. It gets very technical.
So Tim, we're really excited you're going to be with us at the Weather Ready Fest in August in St. Louis. That's going to be a huge day, and we're really thrilled that you'll be there with all of your stuff. Talk about digital atmosphere for a second. That looks like a really cool program that I don't have that on my computers, and it looks like something that's quite useful.
Yeah, Digital Atmosphere is a program that I developed it was an outgrowth of a program called Weather Graphics from '92. It was a DOS program. Then I took it to Windows. I developed this mostly in Korea when I was there and worked on it some more here in the US. And this basically just lets you roll your own maps. You can produce very, very high resolution maps for like journals and stuff like that. And it'll crunch just about any kind of data, upper air analyses and stuff like that. And it can do cross sections. And if I want to put on the mixing ratio, I would go up to moisture and click mixing ratio, and it will bring all that up there. So it can really let you get in there and analyze. And it also lets you control how fine-tuned the analysis is. I've got like nearest neighbor, you can do weighted, Barnes-Cressman, and change all the parameters. So it's really a very fine-grained, powerful analysis tool. And I use it all the time here.
So when are you going to port this thing over to Unix and Mac?
We're working on it, believe it or not. We've got to drop the language we're using now, but
breaking news, James.
It is in the works, and yeah, you heard it first here.
There you go. See, we got the news on this show. Now, I have talked with Mike Gibson about doing that for his software, and I don't think I'm about giving up on. I love Mike, but I don't think he's going to do it. So, you port this thing over to a Mac, and me and Brian will be your two salespeople. We'll
Absolutely.
work cheap, like free. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Can't go wrong with that.
Now, there's a lot of people in the weather world that don't use Windows, and it's just. I think there's a very good niche for that type program in the Mac universe. So that will be very, very much appreciated and welcome when that happens.
Absolutely. But let me be clear about this, Tim. I work for money. James might work for free.
Wow. That's a show title right there. I know that.
But
So
we will promote
have
it.
anything for
Tim? Anything else? Kim, anything you want to
I feel bad. We never played our weather ball thing before Tim got into his
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead.
See, Tim, we play this before the weather roundup every week, and you just went right into it. We'd have a chance to play it. This was from 1949 on WCCO in Minneapolis.
Colors blink, but I heard they precipitation's on the way.
But no, thanks for coming on the show, Tim. It was great. And again, one more time before we let you go, explain to everybody how they can access your video and your show that you do and the software. Plug away. This is your plug-a-rama here. Go.
Yeah, thank you. The easiest way, just go to weathergraphics.com. That'll take you to the show, to the books, and to the consulting. I do like Skype training and stuff like that. So pretty much all you need to get fully up to speed on the latest in severe weather. And of course, I got the books. And the latest book is the Instability Scooty in photograph book. And let me just break it open and let you see a page. Yeah, there we go. So
we'll have
all
the weather graphics on our show notes, by the way.
I have 1 minute to show, and I just want to say thank you to Tim because your books were instrumental in helping me through my classes during school. So I recommend everyone, any weather enthusiast, or if you're studying, get them because they were extremely helpful. And I still have all of mine.
Thank you. I love hearing that. And it's right there on my introductions on the books. I love feedback. So yeah, please write if there's something you want to improve in the book or something you want covered.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, Tim, thanks for taking the time to let us horn in on your program tonight. It was great fun. We appreciate it. Have a great week. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay. Did you see the soundproofing he had in his studio in there? Wow.
It was impressive.
Yeah.
That was some high-end stuff. Well, I was hoping I'd get Aubrey on before the top of the hour to do the email, but she had to drop off to go do television. We're on this new time frame here just for this 1 week. So let's roll Professor Peters and WeatherBrains 101. We've got Tony Rice in the astronomy report. We don't need to do a weather roundup. We had the longest weather roundup ever on this show. But we'll come back with our picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
I've noticed on Twitter there have been a number of postings of photos of shelf clouds from a variety of different locations across the central and northeast United States during the past week or so. There's no doubt that a shelf cloud pushing out ahead of a thunderstorm with the thunderstorm as the backdrop, can be one menacing sight. Those really menacing shelf clouds always remind me of the movie Independence Day when the aliens arrive. But typically, shelf clouds do not mean the arrival of aliens. But as the name implies, it is a horizontal cloud extending along the edge of the thunderstorm, typically the leading edge. The low, ominous cloud often reaches across the sky, taking on the shape of an arc, and is associated with the thunderstorm outflow. Sometimes the shelf cloud may take on the appearance of a rolling horizontal cloud, and hence the name roll cloud. But this is not a horizontal tornado. Roll clouds usually appear detached from the thunderstorm, while most shelf clouds appear to maintain an attachment to the parent storm. Whether it is a roll cloud or a shelf cloud, it is typically on the interface or the boundary between the downdraft, where the rain-cooled air is located, and the warm, usually humid air feeding into the leading edge of the thunderstorm. The outflow wind can often gust to speeds well above the criteria for a severe thunderstorm, that is 58 miles an hour, so it may be accompanied by damage. In most cases, as the shelf cloud moves overhead, you will experience a wind direction and wind speed shift. Typically, the wind direction will change to the direction of the wind flowing out of the thunderstorm. Shelf clouds during daytime are often very dramatic and make for some spectacular photos. I do wonder if the arrival of the aliens in Independence Day may have been influenced by a shelf cloud seen by a director or producer. If you have a question about the weather, pop us an email at question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Ramadan began last week, the 9th month of the year 1439 in the Islamic calendar, observed by Muslims worldwide as a month of fasting during daylight hours. Last year it started at the end of May, next year it starts at the beginning. It shifts each year on the Gregorian calendar for a number of reasons. The biggest one is that the Islamic calendar is a lunar-based one, with 354 days in a year. That doesn't align very well with the 365 days of the Gregorian calendar. Years where it falls in January, it can be observed again in December. Traditionally, the Islamic calendar isn't just based on the motion of the moon, though. It's observationally based. Specifically, each month begins with the first appearance to the naked eye of the crescent moon, following a new moon. When Ramadan falls about a month or so before or after the summer solstice, Muslims in Northern Europe are faced with a unique problem. The sun remains above the horizon from May until July. Since not eating or drinking anything for up to 30 days is not really practical, the faithful have instead adopted the solar schedule of the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. They use a similar approach during winter when the sun doesn't rise above the horizon for weeks. Naked eye astronomy is also far easier in the desert skies of the Middle East than many other parts of the globe, especially higher latitudes, where clouds can obscure the sky for days. To address this, in 2006, a group of European and American Islamic scholars proposed a set of astronomical parameters based on the position of the moon relative to the Earth and sun. The rule goes, following each new moon, if anywhere on the globe the moon is at least 5 degrees above the horizon and 8 degrees away from the sun, the new month begins at sundown the following day. If either of these parameters are not met, the month begins the day after that. Regardless of your faith, you can see the 43% illuminated waxing crescent moon tonight for yourself, weather permitting, of course. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
Well, let's just go right into Picks of the Week. We'll do the email segment next week. We do have a lot of email, I noticed, but Aubrey had to go do some television. And for those that are first-time listeners, we most of us here are actually working the night shift, so we're kind of mixing work and WeatherBrains, and we come and we go. So, but she'll be back. We'll get her on next week with an email segment. But let's do Picks of the Week. This is where we go around this finely polished digital mahogany table and share something related to weather, website, hardware, software, books, anything remotely related to weather. I found it interesting. The Atlanta Journal did a piece where they shut down some streets in downtown Atlanta last week.
I love that.
Because they thought they had a bomb on their hands. And we all know what we're laughing because we know what it was. It was a radio sign. It just happened to land in downtown Atlanta. Peachtree City is what? Only about 30 miles away.
Yeah.
And the winds aloft are pretty light this time of the year, and it just didn't go very far. And apparently it dropped in downtown Atlanta, and people freaked, called the police, and I guess Peachtree City got that one back, you know.
In pretty good shape, too, since they didn't shoot it.
Yeah. Or blow it up with a bomb.
Yeah. Sometimes they take it out and they blow it up, but I think they actually delivered that. They hand delivered that one back to Peachtree City. But anyway, my pick of the week, it's an article in the Atlanta newspaper about that. So, Brian, what's your pick of the week?
Before I give you my pick, I have a Radioson story for you.
Oh, go.
When I first started my career in the Weather Bureau in the mid-'60s, one of my first jobs was helping to blow up the balloons and release the radiosondes. And we had to do a lot of this was done manually. I had this big plotting board to plot the winds aloft and everything. But the fellow I was working with, right after we finished our run, his wife called him up and said, look, when you get home, you've got to get that limb that's out back. It's banging the house. So when he got home after the shift was over, about 3 o'clock, he went up on the roof, and lo and behold, there was the Radioson we had launched that morning.
Wow.
And it wasn't the limb after all. It was the Radioson that, hit the roof.
Wow.
I think I wanted to try to calculate the probability of that, but it's it's a very large number, a very small number, however you want to look at it.
My Radioson story is, we've launched a balloon from Pizzitz Middle School, where my kids go 3 years in a row, and they've successfully recovered it every time. Well, Liberty Park, the other school in our system, decided they would do it this year. And so they launched it 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the kids picked a perfect weather day. It couldn't have been better. And the balloon landed in Clay County in a big pasture. And when they got there, they could see where it had landed. They tracked it on the GPS. And when they got there, there was a big old giant bull standing over it. So they had to distract the bull long enough for somebody to run out and get the payload and bring it back. So it looked like some sort of bullfight in Barcelona or something, trying to get their balloon back.
That story sounds like a lot of bull. My pick of the week is WeatherWise. I was reminded of WeatherWise when Tim mentioned it, and so I went to their webpage, and I thought I'd put a link to it because it's a fascinating magazine.
Do you still get that magazine, Brian?
No, I do not, and I really should.
I still do because it's part of the AMS offering. I think it's now part of the NWA offering too, that you can subscribe to it at a discount. And I have, ladies and gentlemen, I have every single WeatherWise magazine that has ever been produced.
Wow.
That's downright creepy.
The first one.
Large
Creepy.
collection.
Creepy.
Well, I'm just saying it's a little weird, but that's okay. That's cool.
I worked so hard to get all those doggone things. And do you know the story behind how I got the majority of them?
How?
Well, there was this gentleman, there used to be these like email, groups and things where you what would you call it? Like weather list and all these things. But anyway, somebody put on there one night, that they had, they're going to basically get rid of all their weather textbooks and all their, all the different things they had in their collection, including this huge subset of WeatherWise magazine. And so I freak. And I immediately emailed the guy and I say, what do you want for that? And he said, well, Bill, I'm basically giving them away, but somebody already beat you to it. And so that is how I became friends with our friend Sean Potter, who contributes to WeatherWise magazine today, still and works for the Weather Service. I said to the guy, I said, please, you don't understand. I got to have this collection. I've always loved this magazine. I spent all these hours in the library. How can I get in touch with that person? He said, well, I'm not going to give you his name, but I'll contact him and put him in touch with you. So I was like, okay. Sean calls me up. He says, what do you want? And I'm like, I want to buy those magazines from you. I'll give you $500 for those magazines. And he said, Bill, I've been looking to get these all my life. I, wanted to have these. I'm like, look, you don't understand. I got to have these. I'm like, I'll give you $1,000 for those magazines. Woo. And he said, Bill, I can't part with them. He said, I got them now. And, I'm sorry, I can't take those. Sean, I will give you $1,250 for those magazines. And so he said, I'll call you back. And his wife said, you are taking the $1,250.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, literally, I met him in the parking lot of a hotel in Washington, D.C. And there was this handing off of the cash, I give you the cash, you give me the magazine. And we've been close friends ever since. But there was one I didn't have, which was the very first one. And he didn't have it either. He only has a copy of it. And another friend of the show, Dr. Lourdes Aviles at Plymouth State University, Plymouth State inherited some weather museum's collection in New Hampshire. And when she got the collection back to the university, she said, Bill Murray, I have WeatherWise magazine #1. And so she gave me that magazine. I will treasure it forever. So I have the whole set.
So here's the questions. How much you sell this for? I mean,
probably $30. Yeah. No, how much would I sell it for? No, it's priceless.
Yeah, for the whole set, all your WeatherWise magazines. How much are we going to sell it for?
How much would I sell it for?
Yes, you.
$5 million.
Okay, that rules me out.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm out.
Kim's out.
So they say, James, what something is worth is what somebody's willing to pay for it. So I think
exactly.
I'm in trouble.
Wow, that's a little weird, but that's okay. It's like some of these people on these job applicants. They'll put whenever we have a job opening here, they'll put "I live, sleep, eat, and breathe weather." That's a little weird to me, man. I mean, well, come on. I mean, you got to get off the grid a little bit here, but it's weird in a good way. All right, Kim, let's go. Let's go. Pick of the week. What you got for us this week?
All right. Well, speaking of things that aren't quite weather, but are related to our field, I have linked to the USGS website where they talk about their alerting system. So sort of the equivalent of their watch warning system, but for volcanoes, since volcanoes have been on everybody's mind lately, watching what's going on in Hawaii. I wanted to just point out that if you think that it's hard to forecast the weather and try to describe all of the things about which we're uncertain, oh my goodness, try talking about what's happening under the surface of the planet where we don't have very good observations. Yeah. So they have borrowed, though, some of our terminology. They have normal conditions and then advisory watch warning level. But then they also supplement that with these color codes for the kinds of ash activity, the kinds of expulsions that are coming out of the volcano that are really, really important, especially for aviation, but can be also for health impacts. And as you read through it, just thinking of all the potential combinations of alert and color, they have a lot that they're trying to communicate. I always find it fascinating to see how all of our other friends in the geosciences handle communicating about their hazard risk.
That's a whole new set of social science issues, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I just could not imagine having to do that. I mean, that sounds so confusing. Oh,
yeah.
And so challenging.
If you've tried to follow what's been going on, it's been very hard to follow. And I know it took a while for even the folks in Hawaii to get a good grasp on who all needs to evacuate, where do we need to go to, what areas were things happening and why. That took a couple days.
Yeah, and then some poor guy sitting on his porch and, a long distance from the volcano, and he gets his legs broken by volcanic splatter that went like 2 miles or something.
Ugh. Gosh, that's terrible. Yeah.
And I wonder if they deal with it with the face bag and the tweeter fake, forecast guys. It's like
I've been wondering that too. I haven't seen. I need to look up. The USGS has their USGS volcanoes handle on Twitter that's been very active throughout all of this. It'd be interesting to see if there's been any feedback like that, because other events, there are people who think they can predict earthquakes and stuff. I would imagine we have the crazies coming out.
But I will say that Twitter account is a good follow. They put some really good information on that. So that should be somebody's supplementary pick of the week. Is that what is it? It's the USGS Volcano Twitter account. I forget the exact handle, but it's really good. We'll
USGS Volcanoes. I can.
Okay, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll stick that in the show notes too. All right, so let's see here. We've done Brian's. We've done Kim's. Bill, do I hear the
Get it
sound?
right. No. I'm going to do USGS Twitter volcanoes. That was one I had. Y'all stole it from me. Kim stole my pick.
We'll let Bill pick the USGS volcano Twitter account there. That's
you know what? You know what Tropical Storm Depression 90L Alberto is going to do?
No.
It's going to mess up Brian Norcross and Max Mayfield next Monday night. You just watch.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
High probability of that.
I just want to throw up. So anyway, I've been trying for 7 or 8 years to get Max Mayfield back on this show since we had him down in South Texas, Brian.
Well, hang on. If the Euro's right, the Euro took it up to the Louisiana coast like Saturday and then River, and it would by Monday the thing was near Memphis. I mean,
good. Keep that thought.
Maybe we'll be all right. So we've been on the air for about 8 hours here. I think we need to wrap this thing up. For those that don't know, we traditionally do the show at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central on Monday nights. And for those that gather around and watch it live, they're typically at live.bigbrainsmedia.com. You know, Tim went through his chat room. I feel guilty. We need to do that. One Monday night, we just need to go through the chat room over there. But anyway, if you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. And we'll get Aubrey to do a long segment next week. All of our social media accounts are there as well. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful week and God bless.
And good luck at the Hoover Met this week, Brian.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Kick some dirt on some umpires for us. All right, we'll see you guys.